The Abduction. The night sky above New Terra Colony on Mars glittered with stars, a view that still took Sarah Reeves' breath away, even after 5 years of living on the Red Planet. She stood at the viewport of the family's HAB unit, gazing out at the rocky Martian landscape bathed in starlight. Her daughter, Zoe, only 6 years old, pressed her face against the thick glass beside her. "Mommy, what's that?" Zoe asked, pointing at a faint light moving across the sky. Sarah squinted, trying to make out the object. It was too large to be a satellite, and moving too erratically to be a ship on a standard flight path. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. Maybe it's a new transport coming in." But as the light grew larger and brighter, Sarah felt a knot of unease form in her stomach. Something wasn't right. She activated the HAB unit's comm system. "Control, this is HAB Unit 17. We're seeing an unidentified object approaching from the northwest. Can you confirm?" Static crackled for a moment before a tense voice responded. "HAB Unit 17, this is Control. We're tracking multiple objects entering Mars airspace. Please initiate lockdown procedures immediately." Sarah's heart raced as she scooped Zoe into her arms. "Jake," she called out to her husband, who was in the adjoining room. "We need to lock down now." Jake burst into the room, his face pale. "I just got the alert. What's going on?" Before Sarah could respond, a blinding light flooded the HAB unit. The ground shook violently, and alarms blared throughout the colony. Sarah clutched Zoe tightly as Jake struggled to activate the reinforced shutters. "It's not working," he shouted over the noise. "The system's not responding." The light outside intensified, and Sarah felt a strange tingling sensation over her skin. She looked down at her hands and gasped. She could see right through them. "Jake!" she cried out in panic. But her voice was lost in a deafening roar. The world around them seemed to dissolve, colors and shapes blending together in a dizzying swirl. Sarah felt weightless, her grip on Zoe loosening despite her desperate attempts to hold on. And then, darkness. When Sarah regained consciousness, she found herself in a vast, dimly lit chamber. The air felt thick and humid, with an odd metallic scent that made her nauseous. She tried to move but found her limbs restrained by some unseen force. "Zoe," she called out weakly. "Jake." A soft whimper to her right made her heart leap. "Mommy, I'm scared." "It's okay, baby. I'm here," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Can you see Daddy?" Before Zoe could answer, a door hissed open, flooding the chamber with harsh, blue-tinted light. Sarah squinted, trying to make out the figures entering the room. What she saw made her blood run cold. They were undeniably alien. Tall, slender beings with grayish-blue skin that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. Their heads were elongated, with large, almond-shaped eyes that glowed with an inner light. They moved with an eerie grace, gliding across the floor rather than walking. One of the aliens approached Sarah, regarding her with what seemed like curiosity. It raised a long-fingered hand, holding a device that looked like a cross between a tablet and a medical scanner. A series of chirps and clicks emanated from the being, and Sarah realized with a start that it was attempting to communicate. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "Where's my husband? What do you want with us?" The alien tilted its head, studying her for a moment before turning to its companions. More chirps and clicks followed, and then the group moved toward Zoe. "No," Sarah screamed, struggling against her invisible bonds. "Don't touch her. Take me instead." But her pleas fell on deaf ears, if the aliens even had ears. They surrounded Zoe, who was crying softly now, and began running their strange devices over her small body. Time seemed to stretch endlessly in that chamber of horrors. Sarah lost track of how long they were held there, subjected to countless tests and examinations. She caught only glimpses of Jake, strapped to a table across the room, his face contorted in pain or fear. She couldn't tell which. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The aliens retreated, taking Zoe with them despite Sarah's anguished cries. The restraints vanished, and Sarah found herself able to move again. She scrambled to Jake's side, helping him sit up. "They took her," she sobbed, collapsing against his chest. "They took our baby." Jake held her tightly, his own tears falling silently. "We'll get her back," he whispered fiercely. "Whatever it takes, we'll find her." A low hum filled the air, and the chamber began to vibrate. Sarah and Jake clung to each other as the sensation of weightlessness returned. There was another blinding flash of light, and then they were back in their hab unit on Mars, as if nothing had happened. But the empty bedroom down the hall and the ache in their hearts told a different story. News of the abduction spread quickly across the solar system. It wasn't just Zoe. Dozens of children from the Mars colony had been taken, along with others from lunar bases and deep space stations. Earth was in an uproar, demanding action from its leaders. In the days that followed, Sarah and Jake found themselves at the center of a media storm. Their story, the grieving parents whose child was snatched by unknown aliens, became the rallying cry for humanity's response. United Nations Secretary General Delina Rodriguez stood before the General Assembly, her voice ringing with determination. "We have been violated in the most heinous way imaginable," she declared. "Our children, the very future of our species, have been stolen from us. This act of aggression cannot and will not stand." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "For too long, we have looked to the stars with wonder and hope. We extended our hand in friendship to the cosmos, ready to take our place among the galactic community. And how have we been repaid? With treachery and barbarity." The assembly hall erupted in shouts of agreement and calls for action. Rodriguez raised her hands, calling for silence. "My fellow citizens of Earth and her colonies, I stand before you today to announce that we will no longer be passive observers in this vast universe. We will no longer be victims. Today, we unleash the full might and determination of humanity upon those who would dare to harm us." She took a deep breath, her next words sending shockwaves across the planet and beyond. "I am hereby authorizing the immediate activation and deployment of Project Prometheus, a fleet of 800,000 supercarriers, each armed with the most advanced weapon systems ever conceived by human minds." Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. The existence of such a fleet had been nothing more than rumors and conspiracy theories until now. These ships have been built in secret over the past 2 decades, drawing on the brilliance of our scientists, the skill of our engineers, and the unwavering spirit of our people. They represent the pinnacle of human achievement, and they will be the instrument of our vengeance. Rodriguez's eyes blazed with a fierce light. "To the aliens who took our children, hear me now. You have awakened a sleeping giant. The full fury of humanity is coming for you, and we will not rest until every last one of our children is returned to us, and you answer for your crimes." The assembly exploded into cheers and applause. Across the planet, in homes and public squares, on ships and space stations, billions of humans watched the broadcast, their hearts swelling with a mixture of pride, anger, and hope. In their small apartment in the Mars colony's emergency shelter, Sarah and Jake watched the speech in stunned silence. Jake turned to his wife, his expression a mix of determination and fear. "We have to be on one of those ships," he said. Sarah nodded, her jaw set. "We're coming, Zoe," she whispered. "Hold on, baby. We're coming." As the speech concluded, the skies above Earth came alive with activity. Hidden shipyards in orbit and beyond the moon revealed their secrets, massive supercarriers emerging from concealment. Each ship was a city unto itself, stretching for kilometers and bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to ash. The sight was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Humanity had kept this power hidden, hoping never to need it. But now, faced with a threat to its very future, the sleeping giant had indeed awakened. As the first wave of supercarriers prepared to depart, a message was broadcast across all frequencies, in every known language and encoding. To all sentient beings in the galaxy, We, the people of Earth, have been attacked without provocation. Our children have been taken from us. We now embark on a mission of rescue and justice. To those who stand in our way, beware. To those who would aid us, we welcome you as friends. And to those who took our children, run. For the combined might of humanity is coming, and we will not be stopped. The message repeated endlessly as the supercarriers engaged their drives, tearing holes in the fabric of space-time. The largest military force in human history surged forward into the unknown, driven by a singular purpose: to find their lost children and make the galaxy tremble. As the fleet disappeared into the void, those left behind on Earth and her colonies could only watch and wait, their hopes and fears traveling with the Armada. The greatest adventure and the greatest war in human history had begun. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a little girl named Zoe dreamed of home, unaware that an entire civilization was moving heaven and earth to bring her back. Earth's response. The orbital shipyards above Earth buzzed with frantic activity. What had once been humanity's best-kept secret was now on full display for the world to see. Massive supercarriers, each one a testament to human ingenuity and determination, prepared for their maiden voyage into the unknown reaches of space. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the EDF Prometheus, the flagship of Earth's newly revealed armada. Her steely gaze swept over the holographic displays, showing the status of the fleet. 800,000 ships. The number still boggled her mind, even though she had been part of Project Prometheus from its inception. Admiral, her XO, Commander David Chen, approached with a tablet in hand. Final checks are complete. All ships report ready for departure. Tanaka nodded, a mix of pride and apprehension tightening her chest. Very well, Commander. Begin final boarding procedures for all civilian personnel. As the military had scrambled to prepare the fleet for its unprecedented mission, a call had gone out across Earth and its colonies. Scientists, engineers, medical professionals, anyone with skills that could aid in the rescue operation and potential first contact scenario was asked to volunteer. The response had been overwhelming, with millions stepping forward to offer their expertise. Among those chosen were Sarah and Jake Reeves, the parents of Zoe, one of the abducted children. Their impassioned pleas and intimate knowledge of the aliens' appearance and technology had made them valuable assets to the mission. Sarah stood in the massive hangar of the Prometheus, clutching a small backpack containing the few personal items they were allowed to bring. Jake squeezed her hand reassuringly as they waited in line to board. "I still can't believe this is happening," Sarah murmured, her eyes roving over the sleek shuttles and powered exoskeletons that filled the hangar. "A week ago, we were just a normal family on Mars. Now," Jake nodded, his jaw set with determination, "now we're going to get our daughter back, along with all the other children, whatever it takes." As they neared the front of the line, a young officer approached them. "Mr. and Mrs. Reeves, I'm Lieutenant Kira Yoshida. Admiral Tanaka has requested your presence on the bridge for the launch." Sarah and Jake exchanged surprised glances before following the lieutenant. As they made their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the supercarrier, Sarah marveled at the ship's scale. "How long has Earth been building these?" she asked. Lieutenant Yoshida smiled grimly. "Project Prometheus began almost 20 years ago, shortly after we established our first extrasolar colonies. Earth's leaders realized that, as we expanded into the galaxy, we might encounter threats beyond our comprehension. These ships were built as a precaution, one we hoped never to use." They arrived at the bridge, a vast chamber humming with activity. Crew members hurried between stations, making final preparations for the impending departure. At the center of it all stood Admiral Tanaka, her presence commanding respect and attention. The Admiral turned as they entered, her expression softening slightly. "Mr. and Mrs. Reeves, thank you for coming. I wanted you here for this moment. In many ways, this mission began with your daughter and the other abducted children. It's only fitting that you witness its launch." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. Thank you, Admiral. We just want to help in any way we can to bring Zoe home. Tanaka nodded solemnly. And we will do everything in our power to make that happen. She turned back to the main view screen, which showed the vast array of supercarriers stretching out into space. Commander Chen, signal the fleet. It's time. Chen's voice rang out over the ship's communication system and to the entire armada beyond. All ships, this is Prometheus Actual. Prepare for dimensional shift on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Sarah gasped as the view outside shimmered and twisted. Stars elongated into streaks of light, and for a brief, terrifying moment, it felt as if reality itself was tearing apart. Then, with a silent flash, the Prometheus and its accompanying ships vanished from Earth's orbit, leaving behind a stunned and hopeful planet. In the following days, as the fleet traveled through the mind-bending realm of dimensional shift space, Sarah and Jake found themselves working closely with the ship's xenobiology and first contact teams. Their eyewitness accounts of the aliens and their technology proved invaluable as Earth's brightest minds worked to develop strategies for rescue and potential combat scenarios. Dr. Aisha Patel, the lead xenobiologist, pored over the holographic reconstructions based on Sarah and Jake's descriptions. The bioluminescent properties you mentioned are fascinating, she mused. It could indicate an evolutionary path very different from our own. Perhaps a homeworld with little to no natural light. Jake nodded, pointing to the aliens' elongated limbs. And these, the way they moved was almost like they were gliding. Could they have evolved in a low-gravity environment? As the scientists debated theories, Sarah found her attention drawn to a separate group huddled around a different holographic display. She recognized Dr. Victor Novak, a renowned physicist whose work had been crucial in developing the dimensional shift technology that powered the fleet. Curiosity piqued, she approached the group. Dr. Novak looked up, offering a tired smile. "Ah, Mrs. Reeves, come to check on our progress." Sarah nodded, studying the complex equations floating in the air before them. "I couldn't help but overhear something about anomalies in shift space." Novak's expression turned grave. "Yes, well, it seems our alien friends have left us a trail of breadcrumbs, so to speak. We've detected quantum disturbances in shift space consistent with their method of transportation. We can follow them, but what?" Sarah pressed, a note of worry creeping into her voice. The physicist sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "The trail is degrading faster than we anticipated. If we don't reach their homeworld or base of operations soon, we may lose them entirely." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. If they lost the trail, they might never find Zoe or the other children. The enormity of space would become their enemy, offering countless places for the aliens to hide. As if sensing her distress, Dr. Novak placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We're doing everything we can, Mrs. Reeves. This fleet represents the pinnacle of human achievement. If anyone can find them, it's us." Sarah nodded, trying to draw strength from his words. She excused herself and made her way to one of the observation decks, needing a moment alone to collect her thoughts. The observation deck was a cathedral of stars, its transparent aluminum walls offering an unobstructed view of the dimensional shift space outside. Sarah stood at the viewport, watching the swirling patterns of light and energy that no human had witnessed before the launch of this armada. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. "Terrifying, but beautiful." Sarah turned to see Admiral Tanaka approaching, her usual stern expression replaced by one of quiet contemplation. "Admiral." Sarah straightened, but Tanaka waved away the formality. "At ease, Mrs. Reeves. Out here, rank means little in the face of the unknown." The Admiral joined her at the viewport. "I come here sometimes to remind myself of the magnitude of what we're undertaking." Sarah nodded, her gaze returning to the cosmic display before them. "I never imagined anything like this. All my life, space was just space, empty, cold. But this, it's alive, Tanaka finished, in a way we're only beginning to understand. She was quiet for a moment before speaking again. I have a daughter too, you know. She's grown now, with children of her own. When I took this command, I tried to imagine what I would do if it were my grandchildren who had been taken. The Admiral's hands clenched at her sides. I would tear the universe apart to find them. And that's exactly what we're going to do, Mrs. Reeves. We will find Zoe and the others, no matter the cost. Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes, moved by the Admiral's words and the fierce determination behind them. Thank you, she whispered. Their moment of shared understanding was interrupted by the ship's alert system. Admiral Tanaka to the bridge. Commander Chen's voice rang out. We're picking up something on long-range sensors. In the controlled chaos of the Prometheus's bridge, holographic displays flickered with new data as crew members called out readings and analyses. Admiral Tanaka strode to the central command station. Sarah close behind. Report, Tanaka barked. Commander Chen manipulated the main holographic display, zooming in on a sector of space ahead of the fleet. We've detected a massive structure at the edge of this star system. It doesn't match any known stellar phenomenon or natural formation. The image resolved into a vast, ring-shaped object suspended in space. Its surface was a patchwork of metallic segments and glowing energy fields, dwarfing even the supercarriers of Earth's fleet. Dr. Novak, who had joined them on the bridge, let out a low whistle. It's a dimensional gate, he breathed, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and professional excitement. Far more advanced than anything we theorized. This could be how they traveled such vast distances so quickly. Admiral Tanaka's eyes narrowed as she studied the structure. Can they detect us? Negative, Admiral, one of the sensor officers reported. Our shift field is still intact. As far as we can tell, we're completely invisible to conventional sensors. Tanaka nodded, her mind racing through potential strategies. Very well. Bring us out of shift space, but maintain stealth protocols. I want a full sensor sweep of that structure and the surrounding area. If this is their technology, the aliens who took our children can't be far. As the fleet dropped back into normal space, the true scale of the dimensional gate became apparent. It dominated the view screen, its energy field shimmering with colors that hurt the eyes to look at directly. My God, Jake whispered, having joined Sarah on the bridge. How do we fight something that can build on this scale? Admiral Tanaka's voice was steel. We fight with everything we have, Mr. Reeves. Humanity didn't come this far to be cowed by fancy architecture. She turned to her communications officer. Signal the fleet, all ships to battle stations. We may have found our first target. Throughout the Armada, alarms blared as crews rushed to their posts. Weapon systems hummed to life, shields raised, and pilots climbed into their fighters. The great human fleet, built in secret and revealed in desperation, prepared for its first true test. Sarah and Jake clutched each other's hands, their hearts pounding. Somewhere beyond that impossible gate, their daughter was waiting, and nothing in the universe would stop them from bringing her home. As the fleet moved into formation, the dimensional gate pulsed with sudden activity. Arcs of energy danced across its surface, and the center began to ripple like the surface of a pond. Energy spike. A sensor officer called out. Something's coming through. All eyes on the bridge fixed on the gate as a ship emerged from the shimmering portal. It was like nothing they had ever seen, organic and mechanical at the same time, its hull seeming to flow and shift even as they watched. And it was headed straight for them. Admiral Tanaka's voice cut through the tense silence on the bridge. All ships, hold your positions. Do not fire unless fired upon. She turned to the communications officer. Broadcast on all frequencies, all known languages and encoding protocols. Let's see if we can talk before we fight. As the message of peace and inquiry was sent out, the alien ship continued its approach. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Then, with a suddenness that made everyone flinch, a response came through. The alien ship had answered their hail. On the main view screen, a face appeared, unmistakably one of the beings that had abducted the children. Its large, luminous eyes blinked slowly as it regarded the humans. When it spoke, the words came through the translation software with a haunting, melodic quality. First contact and conflict. The alien's words hung in the air, sending a chill through everyone on the bridge. Admiral Tanaka stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the being on the screen. I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the Earth Defense Force. We have come seeking the return of our children and answers for their abduction. Are you prepared to comply? The alien's expression remained inscrutable. We are the Zarkesh. Your arrival was foreseen. The children are safe, but they cannot be returned. They are vital to the survival of all. Sarah pushed forward, unable to contain herself. That's our daughter you're talking about. You have no right. Mrs. Reeves, Tanaka warned, but the alien's attention had already shifted. Ah, the progenitors, it said, its tone almost warm. Your genetic contribution has been most valuable. But surely you understand that the needs of the many outweigh the desires of the few. Jake joined his wife, his face contorted with anger. We understand that you kidnapped innocent children. Whatever your reasons, that's an act of war. The alien tilted its head, seeming genuinely perplexed. War? No, you misunderstand. We seek to save you, to save all sentient life in this galaxy. The children are the key. Admiral Tanaka raised a hand, silencing further outbursts. Explain. Now. As the Zarkesh began to detail a threat so vast it threatened all life in the galaxy, tensions among the fleet began to rise. Some believed the alien's tale of an impending doom that only genetically modified human children could avert. Others saw it as a ploy to justify their heinous actions. Aboard the Prometheus, debates raged between military leaders, scientists, and civilian representatives. Sarah and Jake found themselves at the center of it all, torn between their desperate need to recover Zoe and the weight of the Zarkesh's claims. Dr. Patel, the xenobiologist, argued passionately for cooperation. If what they're saying is true, we can't afford to let our emotions cloud our judgment. The fate of our entire species, of all species, could be at stake. But General Harriston, the grizzled head of the fleet's Marine contingent, wasn't buying it. Convenient story, isn't it? They just happen to need our kids to save the universe. I say we take them back by force and sort out the details later. As the debate raged on, Admiral Tanaka received an urgent communication from one of the fleet's scout ships. A massive Zarkesh fleet had been detected approaching from the other side of the dimensional gate. With time running out and tensions at a breaking point, Tanaka had to make a decision that would alter the course of human history. Part 4. Unexpected alliances. Just as it seemed conflict was inevitable, a new player entered the scene. A sleek ship, clearly of Zarkesh design, but bearing unfamiliar markings, dropped out of dimensional shift space between the two fleets. This is Zolar of the Zarkesh Resistance, a new voice announced over the comms. We apologize for our late arrival, humans of Earth. There is much you need to know. Over the next few hours, Zolar and his crew revealed a schism within Zarkesh society. While the ruling faction believed that genetically modifying alien species was necessary to combat a cosmic threat, the Resistance saw it as an unethical abomination. Your children were not the first to be taken, Zolar explained, his voice heavy with regret. But we hope they will be the last. This revelation split the human fleet. Some, like Sarah and Jake, saw an opportunity to not only rescue their children, but to right a wrong that spanned multiple species. Others, still distrustful, wanted to strike immediately, while they had the advantage of surprise. Admiral Tanaka, seeing an opportunity to gather more intelligence and potentially avoid a costly war, made a bold decision. She proposed a joint mission, humans and Zarkesh Resistance members working together to infiltrate the main Zarkesh facility where the children were held. As preparations for the mission began, Sarah and Jake volunteered immediately. "We know Zoe's biosignature better than anyone," Sarah argued. "We have the best chance of finding her quickly." Despite reservations, Tanaka agreed. A small team was assembled. Sarah, Jake, a group of Earth's most elite soldiers, and several Zarkesh resistance fighters led by Zolar himself. As the infiltration team departed in a cloaked shuttle, the human fleet and the approaching Zarkesh Armada faced each other in an uneasy standoff. The fate of two civilizations, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on the success of this desperate gambit. Part 5. Resolution and Aftermath. The infiltration of the Zarkesh facility was a harrowing affair. Human and alien resistance fighters worked in tense cooperation, their mutual distrust gradually giving way to respect as they faced shared dangers. Sarah and Jake, driven by parental desperation, pushed themselves beyond their limits. In the heart of the vast complex, they finally found Zoe and the other abducted children. But the sight that greeted them was not what they expected. The children were suspended in glowing pods, their bodies subtly altered, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Zoe's eyes snapped open as Sarah approached, and when she spoke, her voice resonated with power. "Mom, Dad, you came," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "But you don't need to rescue me. I understand now. We all do." As Zolar worked to deactivate the pods, the children explained what they had learned. The Zarkesh rulers had been telling a partial truth. There was indeed a cosmic threat, a wave of entropic energy that devoured entire galaxies. The children, with their latent psychic abilities enhanced by Zarkesh technology, could sense and potentially divert this threat. But the Zarkesh method was flawed. By forcibly altering other species, they were causing as much harm as they prevented. The children proposed a new solution, a cooperative effort between humans, Zarkesh, and other species, using technology and natural abilities in harmony rather than through coercion. As the infiltration team escaped with the children, a message was broadcast to both fleets. The children, led by Zoe, made an impassioned plea for peace and cooperation in the face of the greater threat. The impact was immediate. Hardliners on both sides found their resolve weakening in the face of the children's undeniable power and wisdom. Negotiations began, tense at first, but gradually warming as the scope of the galactic threat became clear. In the months that followed, a new era of interstellar cooperation dawned. The Zarkesh shared their advanced technology, while humanity contributed its adaptability and innovative spirit. Other species, some also victims of Zarkesh abductions, joined the alliance. Earth's great fleet, built for war, was repurposed. The supercarriers became mobile research stations and dimensional shift explorers, probing the depths of space for signs of the approaching entropic wave. Sarah and Jake, like many parents, struggled to adjust to their child's transformation. Zoe was still their daughter, but she was also something more, a bridge between species, a symbol of hope for the galaxy. As for Admiral Tanaka, she found herself in a role she had never anticipated, diplomat and peacekeeper for an interstellar alliance. The skills that had made her a formidable military leader served her well in navigating the complex relationships between vastly different species. Years later, as the first tendrils of the entropic wave were detected at the edge of the galaxy, humanity stood ready. Not as conquerors or victims, but as part of a united front of sentient species. So, now a young woman and a leader in the joint defense effort, stood on the bridge of a ship that dwarfed even the supercarriers of her childhood. As she gazed out at the swirling dimensional shift space, she felt the hopes and fears of countless beings flowing through her. "Mom, Dad," she said softly, knowing they stood behind her. "Thank you for coming to find me all those years ago. You helped start something amazing." Sarah and Jake, their hair now streaked with gray, stepped forward to stand beside their daughter. As a family, and as representatives of their species, they faced the greatest challenge in the history of the galaxy. But they did not face it alone. In the space around them, the combined fleets of 100 species assembled, a testament to the strength found in unity and the indomitable spirit of life itself. As Zoe gave the order to advance, the first shots were fired not in anger, but in defense of all sentient life. The true war, the war for survival, had begun.